hockey fans, and welcome to episode number 101 of Marty's Illegal Stick, brought to you by the Sports History Network. I'm your host, Scott Kinville, and since we have a Kings fan, a Bruins fan, and a Rangers fan here, I think it's only appropriate that we title this episode The Broken Hearts Club. There is no joy in Mudville for any of us.
I'm strictly rooting for teams that don't exist anymore. So Montreal Expos and Hartford Whalers, here I come.
Oh boy, yeah.
Go Golden Seals.
Yeah, exactly. Those Cleveland Barons are bringing home the cup this year, I'll tell you that. Man, but I'll tell you, before we get diving into this, we got our whole gang back together here. Ed Stefanik is back. He had to work last week, but you know what? Welcome back, brother. Wish there was better circumstances for you.
I got a massage this week, and that was even worse than the Bruins loss. The lady rode me like a skateboard.
Oh,
just jumped on my back and started walking, and it was not what I expected. And then she just ripped a fart right in my face. Don't go to Angel Touch. I'm gonna just rip them right here. Got farted right in the face. Don't know how I didn't get pink eye.
I always kind of marked you as the kind of guy who would enjoy that, though.
No.
I was down with everything you said until the fart. I was like, oh, if somebody walk on your back, I'm like, oh, that might feel real good. Like,
no warning. That's the issue. It was no warning. It was just all of a sudden the pressure in my lower back just went from 100 to 1,000, and I'm like, what's going on here? So
I have a tendency to think if somebody was walking on my back, I'd be the one that was farting.
I tried so hard to hold it in, and I did. I was successful. And then she gets off, and then grabs my neck, and then I hear a, and I'm just like, all right, it's fair game. As soon as she got to my lower back, I gave her one right back. It was just coughing.
Yeah, that's just. Well, you did have a terrible weekend, man.
Boy, that really, what? That really stinks.
Yeah.
More ways than one.
Yeah. And that other voice you hear is, of course, our other co-host. Again, a new member of the Broken Hearts Club, Mr. Chris Mazzotti. What's up, Mazzotti?
Hey, if it looks like I've been crying, I haven't been, but there's like a lot of pollen in the air or something today with all the rain we've had, and my eyes are like just dropping tears like crazy. So
it's okay if
it has nothing to do with the Game 7 or anything like that.
You can admit, I admitted it. I cried. You can cry.
You should have cried. I mean, maybe not as much as Marchand did, but, a reasonable amount.
Well, I don't have as much on the line, but still, I got a tattoo with them.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. Let's start off with that series. Since it was the President Trophy record-setting winning Boston Bruins who dropped Game 7 in overtime, heartbreaking fashion, to the Florida Panthers. Guys, I want to ask you something. Number one, should we really be this surprised that Florida pulled this off? And I'm going to couple that with another couple more questions here. Was it so much that what Florida did right, or Boston did wrong, or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I feel like games 1 through 4, excluding the one loss for Boston, they were, not necessarily dominant, but they were clicking. They were able to. They had some chemistry there, even without Bergeron and Krejci, and I think inserting Bergeron too soon, inserting Krejci again too soon, might have messed up with that a little bit. That's just me. Herniated discs they suck. I understand he's a professional athlete and his body has been put through hell prior, but he's also 37 years old, about to be 38. Maybe let him get a few more days rest and say, well, we need you for the next series. We need you for round 2.
Especially since they were up 3-1.
Exactly. I think that they inserted him a little bit too soon. Found out today, actually, Allmark's been playing with what they call a debilitating injury. Don't know if it's upper body or lower body. I didn't really read too much into it. I think that once they dropped the second game and it was a 3-2 series, they should have looked at Swayman. Especially knowing that they know that there's something wrong with him. That they should have looked into maybe starting Swayman for Game 6.
We talked about that a couple weeks ago on this show, insofar as Allmark goes. And again, it's not to take away anything from him in the regular season because he did have a great season. But he did only play 48 games, and that just happens to be the most games that he's played in one season in his entire career. He had never played in an NHL playoff series prior to this season. Maybe he did have a debilitating injury, and we don't know when it happened.
No, he
But
played last year.
he was with
He was with Boston last year.
Yeah, but wasn't Swayman getting the starts?
I think they splitted him.
Did they? All right. Well,
Didn't Allmark get hurt for a long stretch last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I mean, and he was never expected to carry the load. Let's put it that way.
Well, no one expected.
We don't know when this injury happened, of course. But I think you might have a point there, Ed, that maybe at some point they should have looked at Swayman a little bit sooner, since they had no problems rotating those guys all season long.
Yes. I think that, and I told my dad this when we were discussing it one day at work. We were talking about, just the Bruins and all that. And, he's like, yeah, I can't wait. Allmark's had a great season. I'm like, Swayman's 3. Swayman's had a great season too. They should just rotate 1A, 1B.
Yeah.
2 and 2. Just 2 and 2. If they're looking good, they're looking good. Don't mess up something that's wrong. And I still think that should have happened. I don't know when Allmark got the injury. He could have got it game 3, game 4. He could have got it, 10, 15 games left, and it just started like really getting bad. So I think they should have definitely looked into Swayman a little bit sooner. And he had a great game 7. That loss isn't on him. There was so much. There was no gas left in the tank. Excuses after excuses I could make. Florida still won the series. Florida still put their best foot forward. And, I'm rooting for them now because I don't want to lose the losers, even though I have my thoughts on how the rest. I think it's going to be an all-Canada final.
Well, Mazzotti, are you surprised by all this?
No, because I said earlier, don't sleep on Florida. This is not a gimme. Now, granted, many of my series picks, I did 16 brackets for each team it to be a winner. And I believe Florida was only picked in the Florida winning bracket. So
I still love you did like the ultimate hedging of bets.
It did not help. It did not help. Out of all 16 brackets, the one with the most right is the one where I have New Jersey winning the cup. Which I picked Vegas properly, and I picked Edmonton properly. I picked Dallas winning, but not in the right amount of games. I picked Toronto winning, not in the right amount of games. Carolina I picked, and I picked the Devils. And I didn't even pick that right because I picked the Devils in 5. So, yeah. But the Boston game, the reason is I watch all the highlights all year long, and I watch as many games as I can. And I kept seeing Boston coming from behind, winning by a goal. Boston, gets a late third period goal, 18 minutes left, or 18-minute mark of the third. They get a goal. No team, it's very hard when you score that late to tie it up, right? So I'm like, there's a bunch of games that Boston won, and good on them. They won them. I'm not taking any credit away from them. But I tallied it up yesterday. 23 games by 1 goal or 2 if they hit an empty net. So that's a lot of games. Then you add into that 11 overtime and shootout wins. It's like, okay, well, that's 34 wins that they got that were by a sliver, pretty much. And all the goals that they were dining out is you look at the regular season schedule, they were dining out on Philadelphia and Columbus. Funny enough, Arizona beat them.
I watched that game live, and that game still burns me because that was an absolute icing call. that was an icing call. That's the only call.
It was in November. Let it go.
I don't know. Listen, it's the only game that pisses me off from all regular season.
And Florida had beaten them twice in the regular season. Now they also beat Florida 7-2 in the regular season. Right. So who knew what was going to happen in the series? But I said don't sleep on them. and you take all those wins, if you took all those 34 wins and turned them into losses, you know what team you have? Philadelphia Flyers. So that's how different it is in the parity. That's how small the margin is between winning and losing and being the best team ever in the regular season or being a team that was just good enough to not get a good lottery pick.
Right.
Like, you know, that's the difference. So I wasn't surprised. I think they should have went to Swayman at least a game earlier. I don't really know much Boston could have done different. I really don't. You got to give some credit to Florida. They played their hearts out. Matthew Tkachuk, really took this team on his back, and he did everything we expected him to do. He was a pest. He was talented. He was everything. I mean, talk about a team that doesn't have depth. If he gets hurt, this is, Florida's done. They'll be done in 3 in the next series. So, it's gonna be a good series, the next one. But I feel bad for Boston fans. But you know what? Not for nothing. After the game is over, half the arena's booing Boston on the ice. The team, the city is booing them. So you guys just had the best regular season ever. And I understand it's a disappointment. It's a huge disappointment. But you're booing, it's over, guys. You're booing them. These guys, Bergeron got you how many, you've gone to the final, you've gotten cups, and you're booing this guy in his last time on ice. You gotta.
Allegedly.
I mean, yeah, if it wasn't, then Marchand really was over crying because I never saw a man cry so much over something that, do these guys not know they're millionaires? They act like, I get it. I want my players to care about winning and losing. Don't get me wrong. But the amount of tears coming out of Brad Marchand, of all players, is very weird.
Well, he's found his sensitive side, Mazzotti. Come on.
I mean, and I'm not against men crying or anything like that, but at the end of the day, nobody died. Nobody got shot. And then, this is a game that you guys get paid millions of dollars to do. And you failed. So you shouldn't be crying. All these people in the stands, they're the ones that should be allowed to cry because they just spent a good amount of their lives watching you and you let them down. Because if there was somebody that was a letdown in the series, to me, it was Marchand.
Yes, Marchand did not have his best series. But I will also say a majority of the games were very close. They did play, for the most part, they played all right. It wasn't the wins that we saw in the regular season. It wasn't the goal differential that we saw clearly. It was just disappointing all around.
And here's the other thing, Ed. If Bergeron and Krejci are hurt, okay, because they're winning without Bergeron and Krejci, at the beginning of the series, right? And then all of a sudden they lose a game, and it's like we got to get those guys back in the lineup. What was the point of getting all that depth if you're gonna put hurt guys into the lineup? I don't understand that.
I
you went out and got all this depth. You could win without those guys. You've already shown you could beat this team without those guys. Why insert them back in if they're not ready to go?
I agree. I'm with you 100% on that. They should have waited at least until round 2 if they pulled it off. Because let's face it, they had a chemistry going. They were up 3-1, then they put Bergeron back, and I was like, that's too early. This is way too early. I understand why he wanted to play game 82. I understand why everything happened the way it did. I don't think they should have put Bergeron back too early. They did.
Yeah.
And no city loses like Boston. I will fully say that. 18-1. You have that. You have now this regular season. The Celtics in the past 5 years have been losing just miraculously. No city loses better than Boston. When they lose big.
Well, I will say too
I
that
think
we've been
Vancouver
saying
would have something to say
Yeah,
about that.
I was gonna say,
Vancouver burns down their own
Vancouver,
city. He just
we
proved
know how to lose. We burned down half the city the last time we lost.
every time they did the same thing in '94. Every time they lose, they burn it down.
I will say that kind of goes along with what we've been saying though, that Boston, for the most part this season, didn't really face a lot of adversity either. I mean, yeah, you had the Jacob Rusk injury, but Marchand came back way sooner than everybody thought. Same thing with McAvoy. A lot of things went right. And we've been saying this, that it was, at some point, something was bound to happen.
They even had a good schedule. Like, their schedule was like...
Everybody pretty much plays the same schedule, though. It's a balanced schedule.
Yeah, but like sometimes things just get like lucky, Like,
absolutely.
You're getting this really good team, but it's off the All-Star break when everybody's like up in the air. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Oh, you get to go through your Southwest trip right before the All-Star break, like stuff like that. So,
well, just before we move on to the next series, I do want to say too, just from the Florida end, I think that Brandon Montour has established himself as a legit awesome NHL defenseman.
I loved it because I picked him up in my fantasy team somewhere around December, and I rode him the rest of the way.
Because he
was in every game.
In Florida right now, Carter Mahagi, Carter Uyghur McKenzie. I'm sorry.
They know who Carter Mahagi is. Wow,
I got Carter Mahagi on my brain now. I can't help it.
So does Swayman.
Anyway, I screwed that all up. But all right, let's move on to the next series. Last night, Game 7 between the Rangers and the Devils. The much ballyhooed, much hyped up Game 7, especially after the Rangers played a phenomenal Game 6. They came back strong in MSG. All of a sudden started looking like the Rangers everybody was expecting. And come Game 7 last night at the Rock in Newark, the exact opposite happened. The Devils dominated this game right from the start. And I mean, Shesterkin did what he could to keep that close. But I mean, in all reality, that game could have been 8-0. So, Mazzotti, your thoughts on that game and that series?
Well, I wouldn't say nothing because Schmid played very well last night. My thoughts are this, okay? First of all, Lindy Ruff, is the difference in this series, I really believe, was the coaches. I really believe it came down to the coaches. Lindy Ruff adjusted. He made good adjustments. He had the depth to make adjustments. I mean, the Jersey bench is like 6-8 guys deep. The Rangers bench is zero guys deep. There were no adjustments to be made for Gallant. Who's he going to bring in? I mean, there's nobody. And, hopefully that'll change next year with Hoffman coming up. But as it stands right now, the prospect pool for this season was done. You're going to bring in a Hartford guy to play like Brodzinski or something. That's not going to do it. And our fourth line was one of the few lines that was playing well.
Yeah, Tyler Mott was very happy.
Yeah, Tyler Mott drew 2 penalties, Yeah. Although the first one I think was kind of a ticky-tack call, and the makeup call that the refs made on the Rangers right after that was a ticky-tack call. And it's way to start games. I knew it was going to be a bad night when they started Game 7 with ticky-tack calls. Because you know what that meant? That meant they weren't going to blow a whistle for anything the rest of the game. Right. And it was pretty much how it went. Let's get a couple penalties out early so the NHL can see we called something, and then we'll just let them go. Because that's really what happened. When the Devils are allowed to interfere, they win. That's how this series broke down for me. They interfere everywhere, all over the ice. You try to dish a puck in behind them, they just skate in front of you, interfere, and it's not called because it's the playoffs.
Whoa.
Excuse me.
Hold on.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Interference. I will say that the Devils just burned them with speed.
No. I'm not saying going back the other way. I'm saying when you're trying to attack. You're trying to attack and you try to flip the puck over the Devils, you can't skate around them. They just interfere whichever way they go. And I understand they're allowed to have their own ice. But there's a difference between being allowed to have your own ice and setting 3 picks every time at the line. And it's like a new trap, and they get away with it because there's no penalties being called. So you can't, once the Devils get the lead, it's like 2003 again. You can't even get in the zone because the second you flip the puck in, it's already going out the other way. You're not going to get around the Devils' defenders because they're just going to interfere with you, and there's not going to be any penalties. So that was one thing. But putting Schmidt in was the changer. Really, this series changed on one play to me. One play. And that was Timo Meier jumping on Shesterkin, not getting up, Shesterkin punching him, and then the ref called Shesterkin for the roughing. The Devils scored what may have as well have been their first goal in the series on the ensuing power play, which tied the game, ends up going to overtime, and Dougie Hamilton won it. That was the switch over. The second that whole sequence happened, the whole thing changed. Just like in Game 6, the Rangers didn't have a lot in the first period until they got a power play goal. Then all of a sudden, the whole thing changed. But I knew last night.
Plenty of opportunities last night with the power play, though.
I knew last night the second Adam Fox made that terrible giveaway, which was, I don't know what was going on with Adam Fox in this series. This guy, I really believe, is one of the best defensemen, not even in the NHL, that I've ever seen in my lifetime. He disappeared in this series. I don't know what happened. He was great in the first couple of games, and then I don't know what the Devils did to get him off his game, but it worked because he was terrible almost the rest of the series. And that giveaway, if you look at the replay, he has Kane on the wall, up the thing all alone.
Yeah.
He could have easily just sent it up the ice.
Yep.
But he's dicking around with it, looking for some perfect play or waiting for a perfect setup. Just get the puck out of your zone. Nothing has changed. Just because you're on a power play doesn't mean you have carte blanche to screw around. And then the next guy, and the next guy. Nobody gets the puck, and now it's in the back of the net. And I knew right then that the game was over. I knew right then. There's no way. Unless they score on the rest of this power play, this game is over. And that's exactly what happened. They didn't even get any pressure off the rest of that power play. It was not good. The Rangers acquisition, I never wanted Kane to go to the Rangers this year. I said all along, I don't want Kane. And I think that screwed things up a bunch. He was too slow to play playoff hockey. When he did get the Jets for one play where he got a breakaway, he failed. So, Panarin last year complained that he didn't get to the net enough, that he wanted to have a better series. He was non-existent because, again, these guys are trying to take their time and set up plays and go east-west. And it's like, stop it. Put pucks on net. You got a rookie goaltender. And how did they win in Game 6? They got guys to the net, and they put pucks on net. Why they stopped that in Game 7, I have no idea, but they did. They did not do the same thing. They weren't getting guys to the net, and they weren't getting pucks on net. And when they did, their timing was off. There was a play where the kid line was out yesterday, and they get the puck on net, but Lafreniere is 10 feet from the net at the time they shot the net. At the net, it's like, you guys got to time this right. You're coming around the ice. You can't shoot it when the guy is back in the corner. You got to wait till he gets to the front. Filipino. Terrible series altogether. Filipino is maybe our worst player. He looked weak. For such a big guy, he wasn't strong at all. Didn't win faceoffs. Couldn't push a guy. He was killing the cycle on that line. That's why Gallant had to switch things up so much, because that line was firing for the end of the season, but it wasn't in this series. And I'm almost glad that this happened. First of all, it's not the same as it is for Boston, okay? It's not the same type of collapse. This was going to be a good series. Everybody knew this was going to be tight coming in, right? There's a reason why I only picked the Rangers in 2 of my 16 brackets, okay? Like, as I knew. Why? Because during the regular season, the Rangers had multiple opportunities to overtake the Devils in the standings while playing the Devils, and every time that happened, they lost. So how are they going to do it in the playoffs? Like, if you couldn't overcome them in the regular season, it's not going to get any easier in the playoffs. That's what my thinking was. So, but I'm glad that this happened for a number of reasons. One, they pushed to Game 7. I'm happy about that. That shows that they actually didn't quit on this, because they could have easily folded up for Game 6, and they didn't. And they played a hard Game 7. They didn't sit down. It wasn't a blowout. It was a tight game right down to until the Devils scored that third goal. It was still a pretty tight game. Rangers came out in the third period firing. They were trying everything. Schmidt's made some excellent saves. Okay. But I like this for a few reasons. One, it gives the Rangers some, you look at Messier talk about winning in 94, and he says it. Winning in 94 doesn't happen without us doing badly in 93 and 92. So I'm hoping this leads to something. I'm hoping this wakes Drury up to know what he has in this team, because I feel like it's a close team, but I feel there's pieces that don't belong. And some of those pieces may have been here a while. Some of them may have not. Like, I don't have any gripes about Chris Kreider's game. He was the only one scoring. He played a good series. He did everything he could. Fine. Mika Zibanejad, I'm iffy on him, really. I honestly am. Because he's one of the guys we expect to step up. So when we see him step up in Game 6, great. But when he disappears in Game 7, not so great. You know what I mean? Yeah. Tarasenko's gone. I don't think there's any way he stays with the Rangers. Patty Kane, I'll keep you for $1 million. That's it. $1 million. You want to stay in New York? $1 million. That's it. Sorry, buddy. We need the funds to actually add to guys that can skate in the playoffs.
So very interesting that I see on social media. Of course, social media is what it is, right? Yeah. A lot of Ranger fans are calling for them to somehow get rid of Artemi Panarin, which with an $11.6 million cap hit and no move clause is going to be
nobody's taking him.
So obviously he's not going anywhere.
I don't think that's the right idea anyway. I don't think it's Panarin's fault per se. I think a lot of this falls on the coach, honestly. And I don't like him. I'm just going to say it. I don't like him. I don't like that when they lose, he doesn't look like he cares too much. Like, it really that's one thing I liked about Torts, that he was always pissed off. Good. You should be pissed off. You're the coach of a losing team. You should be pissed off, And when you come up there and you're like, well, they didn't get done. I told them, you gotta put it. I leave it on the players. I give it to players. Blah blah blah. It's like, you're the coach, man. Make some more adjustments. Do something. Like, get him in line. Sit somebody. Like, bench somebody. You know what I mean? Like, that sends a message. Bench Panarin. If he's not doing good enough, bench him. Like, put Jimmy Vesey in his spot. Let's see what happens. Like, that's what I want to happen. And you know who didn't mind doing that? The last coach to win the Rangers a cup, Mike Keenan. Mike Keenan benched Mike Richter for a game. You're like, we're gonna play Glenn Healy tonight because I don't feel that Richter played good enough last game. Like, that's craziness. Okay, even Messi had to go to the coach and be like, this ain't the time of the year to be doing that, coach. And Adam Fox has to learn how to step it up for playoffs. He's been a disappointment in every playoffs they've been to so far. His disappointment in COVID Cup, his disappointment last year for the most part. Like, he's good, but he's so much better. I know he's so much, because I've seen him do things that, like, stagger me. But, like, when you get to the playoffs, some of that stuff has to get put away. and you got to be like fast and quick and decisive. And you can't be, I'm going to dick with it between my skates and make you look like a fool for not being able to get the puck, and then I'm going to pass it. Like, no, that doesn't work in the playoffs.
Right.
You can't do it. Like,
Ed, what'd you see?
Really, I just saw the fight just leave the Rangers. I only watched a portion of Game 7, then I had to go to work, but it felt like there was no, like, once that first goal was scored, it was like done. I really didn't feel like the Rangers really cared as much.
I think this shorthanded, it's so debilitating, that shorthanded one, man.
I mean, Mazzotti
That was
really
the
hit
dagger.
all the points.
Yeah.
Mazzotti really hit all the points, but it was like I just didn't see the drive. Like, it was like just the Devils were all over him. I mean,
and that's
the only real highlight I've seen from the Rangers last game was the Trouba hit.
Oh, that was the best, though. That was the best. The fact that he hit Meyer, that was almost as rewarding as winning that series to me, because Meyer was so dirty all series. And let me tell you something, I didn't really have anything to think of Timo Meyer before. I'm sorry to cut you off, Ed, but fine. I hate this guy. I really hate him. I think he's a really dirty player. And for a 40-goal scorer, I'm surprised, because I don't watch that many Sharks games, to tell you the truth. But, like, I always thought he was, a dangerous guy and a good power forward and whatnot. But, man, he played a dirty series. And they're jumping on Shesterkin. I never, like, there's guys that'll run goalies, and they're more, and there's guys that'll, Shesterkin got run in Game 7 with a guy who forgot what player it was, but basically his skates come out from under him. It wasn't on purpose.
Whoa. Man, Miller really helped him into Shesterkin, though, with that one.
He didn't do much.
Yes, he did.
He watched the replay. His hands on his back. That's it.
He took him down.
He was going down regardless.
He took him down.
That player was going down.
No,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No.
It's not my point. My point is that was a clean taking out the goalie, was my point. Was that Devil player didn't mean to run into Shesterkin on that, but there's not anything else he can do, right? He's going hard to the net. Guy should go harder than that. Just like when Chris Kreider took out Carey Price. It wasn't on excuse me. It wasn't on purpose. It's just he's going hard to the net. There's no way for him to stop.
Right.
He did his best. Unfortunately, Price got hurt. But there's a difference to what Timo Meyer did. When your trajectory is this way and you in midair jump on the goalie's leg instead and then don't get up.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because we talked about it last week. And Ed, I want your opinion on this thing, because I was thinking about you when I was giving my opinion on it. Now, did you see that play? Did you see that play? All right. So they had the collision at the net. Meyer was on Shesterkin's legs, and he was kind of taking a nap on there, right? And I think it was Lindgren that he was hooked up, I believe, the Ranger defenseman. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was Lindgren. And anyways, Meyer's laying on Shesterkin's leg, like Mazzotti was saying. Shesterkin gets bent, starts punching him, right? Whatever. So retaliatory penalty. Referee only sees that, calls the penalty. Devils go on the power play and score. My thing about that was, why was Lindgren not ripping Meyer off of his goalie?
I would have grabbed him by the back of his neck and just
exactly. Why is Igor Shesterkin have to defend himself like that when his defenseman is standing right there watching this whole thing? Why? And
his defenseman wasn't standing right there.
He was
his defenseman was already moving up with ice.
He'd already taken him into the play. He was right there.
Yeah, and then he turned and went back up ice, expecting the play because the play was going up ice. Meyer's the one that decided to sit there and take a nap.
Like I said, I'm telling you, Igor Shesterkin should never have had to do that.
So growing up with the way I played defense, I was always near my goalie. I was always, always near him. So like I would have been right there, and that's me. And he would have been ripped right off. I don't care. Somebody took a chop at my goalie this year in B League, and I grabbed him right by the cage. Like I don't stand for that stuff. But it's if he's already turning up the ice, you should already know there's some commotion going on behind you when the net was just crashed. So you should have just stayed right by the goalie. I mean, that's me, but also this is playoffs, so you want to produce and you want to get in there into the play. So it really is like a double-edged sword to me. I would have tried everything I could to do something back. I would have, taken a few liberties. I would have went right after Meyer. I mean, the Trouba hit was too little, too late.
You're right. It was definitely too late. I don't think it was too little, but
no, you're right. You're right about that. But the timing was bad. They should have done it sooner. They should have targeted him.
I mean, they were targeting him, but they should have hit him that hard a lot earlier.
Yeah.
They were definitely targeting him. There's no doubt about that in every game. The one thing I did want to say, since you brought it up, Scott, is Lindgren. Lindgren got hurt on that TJ Oshie boarding that never even got a penalty back in February, and he missed most of the month of March. They put him in for one game. He got hurt again. He didn't play the rest of the regular season, I believe, or maybe the last game, and then they got him for the playoffs. He didn't look right to me. I don't know why that is. Like, I don't know if he was playing hurt or something like that. The Rangers don't usually let stuff come out after the season. But there was other things going on there. Something was off with that whole duo between Fox and Lindgren. They just, both of them didn't look right. Good on the Devils. I think the Devils are going to stomp Carolina. Seriously, this might be over in 3, because I don't think the one thing you were saying. No. they're gonna forfeit the fourth game. Yeah, they're gonna be like, forget it. We don't want this. We're just gonna leave New Jersey now. We're going back to Carolina. You guys got it. Forget it. You just put up an 11 spot on us in game 3, because that's what's gonna happen in this. I'm telling you, because unless Carolina can really shut the Devils down, unless Carolina can make sure they score first in every game, because that's the biggest difference. The Devils are going to be a force to be reckoned with. They really are. In my Devils winning bracket, I have them playing the Stars in the finals.
That's a good one. And you know what? That's an interesting point that you bring up, because the biggest strength that Carolina has is that ridiculously vicious forecheck they have. But how do you beat a forecheck like that? Speed. And that's what the Devils have to burn.
The Devils have speed. So they have that.
Yeah, that's a very, very interesting point. And we're going to look at the series coming up in just a little bit. But first of all, I want to complete this triangle of misery here before we go any further. You guys now get to get your licks in on me, as the LA Kings completely imploded after trying to keep it somewhat close with the Oilers. And everybody was saying, "Oh, this is going to be a 7-game series." They got blown out in Game 5 when the series was tied 2-2 up in Edmonton, in a game that I'm just going to tell you right now, the LA Kings didn't even look like they were interested in playing.
Yeah.
And then they come back to LA Game 6, and the Oilers just finished them off. I'll tell you something. I have to admit, now that you've had I've had a couple of days to cool down about it. In the latter part of that series, the Oilers took them to school. Physically, speed-wise, the works. I don't think it was anything really Stuart Skinner being too spectacular. I just think there was way too much Connor McDavid, way too much Leon Draisaitl,
way too many penalties. Way too many penalties.
You cannot take penalties against them. Guys, what were your thoughts on that series?
Draisaitl was a wrecking ball. Draisaitl was so good. I know it's the Connor McDavid show and all that. Draisaitl was unstoppable. McDavid was held scoreless or pointless in two of those games?
The first 2 games. He only had 1 assist in Game 3.
Yeah. So the first 2 games, McDavid was, I wouldn't say he was invisible out there, but
no.
But the Kings' game plan seemed like it was so focused on stopping McDavid that they forgot about Draisaitl.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me. This wasn't going to be a goaltending stealing series.
No.
You know, when you look at it, Stuart Skinner and Jonas Corposalo weren't meant to light up the world. But
I can't believe every game didn't have 10 goals in it. It really.
I'm really shocked by that. It should have been an 11-10 games 1 through whatever. But they did a good job containing McDavid. Unfortunately, Edmonton's a two-headed beast. You know, so it really like if there was any series that was least surprising out of the three of ours, it was definitely
right. You could almost kind of see that coming. Yeah, especially with how well Edmonton was planning to close the season out.
Yeah.
You know, I want to talk about their power play for a second. Because, I mean, everybody's talked about it. Obviously, you know, the best power play in the history of the NHL. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's great. But I do want to point something out, though. And this wouldn't help the Kings at all. But going forward, now the Edmonton Oilers scored 25 goals in that series total through 6 games. 9 of them came on the power play. That means almost 40% of their goals scored came on the power play. Now, the likelihood of that power play going cold is not very good. But if there was one thing that could derail this Edmonton Oilers train, besides the fact of goaltending, is the fact that if that power play even becomes average for a series, they could be in some trouble because they're really that good of a 5-on-5 team, especially for a team that has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with you. Without a power play, for some reason, I don't know what it is with this Edmonton team, they have a lot of more difficulty scoring a 5-on-5.
Yeah, it's weird.
But you put them on the power play, and it's almost automatic.
Yeah,
I mean, they should almost incorporate a new rule for this team to be like you only get 1 minute for minors. Yeah. Because they only need like 40 seconds. If that, it's like Draisaitl to whoever go, or whoever to Draisaitl go, and you can't stop it. You try to stop one side, it goes to the other. And it's just ridiculous. You got McDavid just doing loops, you know, around the house, just waiting for the puck. And it's just like, do the Kings, like, I'm watching this game, and McDavid's literally doing laps. And I'm like, does anybody want to take him? Anybody want to make it hard for him to skate?
I'm going to tell you something right
now. Like, watch a Devils game and see how interference works. Because
wait. About that power play. Now, I'm glad you brought that up because we were talking in the last series, right, about Gallant refusing to make any adjustments. The Kings would not make any penalty kill adjustments because if you watch them on that penalty kill, they stayed in this close-knit box.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they refused to go out above the faceoff dots. They wouldn't. And in the meantime, that's given all that room that you were just talking about with McDavid and Bouchard, who played a very, very good series himself.
Yeah.
Bouchard, don't forget about him.
Yeah.
Right? So they owned the perimeter. And you cannot give a fast team and a skilled team like Edmonton that much space out in the perimeter. Now, what the Devils did, and I noticed on their power play, on their penalty kill, they were extremely aggressive, especially last night.
Super aggressive.
They had 2 guys out of the point at all times, making it very difficult for the Rangers to get the puck movement going, which is exactly what the Kings had to do against the Oilers, and they didn't. They refused to make that adjustment, and boy, did Edmonton burn them horribly with it. Now, and also watching that series, I'm also kind of starting to see, and I hate to say it, but all those years of playing 25, 26, 28 minutes a night for Drew Doughty is starting to take its toll. He did not look like Drew Doughty in that series. Very tentative. The first time in his career I've seen Drew Doughty play tentatively. You know, he's always been a very hyper-aggressive defender. He'll go out to the point himself. He don't care in the defensive zone. That series, he laid back, just tried to do stick checks, and it's, you know, perhaps it's just a symptom of being almost 34 years old and having played a ton of hockey. But that's going to have to be a concern for LA going forward.
Well, you know, as great as Doughty's been, at some point, these guys got to get moved down the lineup.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, absolutely.
And who is it? I mean, you tell me, Scott. Who's the next best defenseman in LA?
Well, not anybody on the roster currently, but they got Brant Clark coming.
Right. You said it right there. Nobody on the roster currently is the second best defenseman.
Well, listen, not a defenseman that's necessarily going to take the place of a Drew Doughty.
No, but like, is there anybody who's like even close to becoming him that's on the roster for this series?
No.
Well, that's why you lost. I mean, really, honestly, I don't think LA played badly at all. I think, you watch the goals that were scored. Korpisalo's not a good goalie. I'm sorry.
He was just getting barraged,
he goes down too early. He was down early on every shot. Every shot's going high and up and it's like, stop going down, kid. Like, you got to stay on your feet a little more. You're not getting the push side to side because you're already down on the ice.
Right.
Like, so you can't get across for that play that he should have gotten across for. Like, some of those goals, I mean, really, think about it this way, Scott. If Igor Shesterkin was on your team, or even Ilya Sorokin, or Ullmark, would LA be out of this? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I don't have that much confidence in this Edmonton back end. Edmonton's all front. They're all offense.
Oh, there's no
you
doubt.
Get behind them, they have nothing there. No. I mean, Bouchard played a good series. He's not better than Doughty.
No,
like, you know, so
Bouchard is an offensive defenseman. He is not going to play stellar defense for you. You know who actually looked terrible in that series for Edmonton was Darnell Nurse.
Yeah.
Oh, he looked invisible.
He looked awful for a guy who's getting $9.25 million a year.
Yeah. No,
something like that.
Way overpaid.
He had a terrible series. So, and I think going forward, especially, we're going to talk about it in a second. Say if they end up meeting up with Dallas at some point, they're going to have a very hard time with a team like the Dallas Stars. But
I think they're going to have hard enough time with their next team.
I think so too. And you know what? Let's just move on because, like I said, there's just nothing more to say about it. But another of the huge upsets. I know we talked about Boston being the biggest upset. This one's got to rank right up there with it, guys. The Seattle Kraken took down the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche and are advancing.
Don't sleep on Seattle.
I have one question about
Seattle.
I have one thing to say about this series, and that Makar hits somebody from behind and gets one game, and Eberle folded Cogliano and got nothing. I'm just curious their decision making on that, but other than that, Seattle was dominant. I just want to know why Eberle didn't get looked at for even a fine for putting Cogliano's neck into the rafters.
Because it's Department of Player Safety, and Department of Player Safety is voodoo.
They really are.
I don't know. I did my DOPS rant last week, so I'm just going to
go again. He might have reloaded for a week. Stop.
I saw that hit, and I was just like, that was worse than the Makar one. The Makar's wasn't great, but I've seen worse. And that Eberle one was awful. That might have been one of the worst ones I've seen in recent years.
What was the one I was complaining about last week, Scott? The one that was way after the play.
Oh, that was now you got me thinking. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to.
I can't remember it, but they did end up finding that guy for that hit. But it's like that's it. Like,
let me
your $5,000. Like,
it's all water under the dam now. But did letting Darcy Kemper go really hurt them that bad?
No, not at all.
The injuries did.
Georgiev's better than Kemper any day of the week.
Ed, I see what you're saying about the injuries, but they only really had one. I mean, and they've been playing without Landeskog.
It's a huge.
But they've been playing without
Nuchushkin leaving was big.
Yeah,
Nuchushkin leaving. Yeah. He decided to let somebody OD in his hotel room.
Yeah. It's. I think honestly, I think that the absence of Kadri.
I think they didn't have grit. You're right. Ed said it earlier, on an earlier show that they lost some grit, and I think it showed here. And man, I never seen Nathan McKinnon disappear.
I know.
Like, that really surprised me because, Edmonton, say what you will about them, they can lose big, But you're still noticing McDavid and Draisaitl.
Oh yes, yes.
You know,
absolutely.
some of these games, I didn't know when McKinnon was on the ice.
Absolutely.
You know, Rantanen seemed much more of a big deal than McKinnon in this series. Rantanen, I noticed every time he was on the ice. You know, and they're on the same line. So why am I not noticing McKinnon? Like, I don't know. I think these guys. I think these guys were out of gas. I honestly do.
Yeah.
I think beating Tampa last year was that hard that they never really had their tank going all year long. They got it going at the right time down the stretch leading up to the playoffs, but it's a tall order. And and Philip Grubauer, man, I love it. I love him giving it to these guys. That's what this came down to, because I never seen this guy play so good. Like, really. Henrik Lundqvist was talking about his stance. His stance is like a hybrid of between a butterfly and an old-fashioned stand-up goalie. He stands a little taller, which allows him to react a little faster because he's not on the ice like Korpisalo already. So he's able to get those side-to-side blocker saves that Korpisalo was missing because he's up a little more. He's up on his heels more. So that was really the difference. That really was. And you know what? That's another thing Georgiev's not good at. He is down a lot. He does go down easily, and he gets flustered easily too. So, you know, when Colorado puts too much, you know, I thought Georgiev did so well all season because his defense was so good in front of him. And that defense had problems this series, you know, and Seattle, good on them. They took it to him. They took it to him hard. I wish they could win a home game for their fans, but other than that, winning so much in Colorado, that's crazy. That's a hard building to play in. Especially with the altitude and all that stuff. Didn't phase them at all. And I only picked Seattle to beat Colorado in one of my brackets, and that's the one where Seattle wins the cup. And you know what I titled that bracket? Yeah, right. So we'll see. We'll see if yeah right comes up a winner, but I don't think so. It's still a tall hill to climb, and they got a hell of an opponent in front of them.
Yes,
because I can tell you who is better than Alexander Georgiev, and that's Jake Ottinger. Frankly, he's the best goalie left in these playoffs.
Yeah,
he is. There's nobody better. There's nobody. He's the best goalie left in these playoffs, and by that measure, I would say the cup is Dallas's for the taking.
I'll tell you something.
Go out there and take it. You got the best goalie. Go take it.
I'm telling you right now, with the Dallas Stars, to me, anyways. You know how last year it kind of just felt like it was Colorado's year.
Yeah,
there was just that feeling about them, right?
Well, you watched them; they were miles above everybody else.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm getting that same vibe about the Dallas Stars now because. You know what? I know it took them 6 games to beat the Minnesota Wild, but the Minnesota Wild are a pesky good team.
They are.
Yeah. They really are, right? Mm-hmm. And with the Dallas Stars, and Mazzotti, you just nailed it on the head. Now they've got the best goaltender left, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the Dallas Stars is now they're getting contributions from all over the board. They're healthy. Rupe Hintz is healthy again, right?
Heiskanen looks awesome.
Tyler Seguin looks like he's just wound the clock back about 6-7 years. Even Jamie Benn contributing again. Right?
Who knew Joe Pavelski going down would let Seguin go up?
They're going to get him back. But they're going to get him back. Yeah, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about him coming back. So, I mean, I listen. Seattle's a nice story. It really was a nice story. Them knocking off the defending Cup champs. I personally don't give them a prayer in hell against Dallas. I'm sorry. They might win a game, maybe hopefully for their fans at home, just so they can experience what that is. But I think this Dallas Stars team is going to be the one to beat coming out of the West.
I don't think it's going to be that easy for Dallas. I think these games are going to be hard. Could I see it being over in 4? Sure. Can I see it going 7? Yeah. I
Right.
could. I do see Dallas coming out either way. Um, but you never know, man. This is a huge confidence boost for Seattle.
It is.
And we've seen it in the playoffs over and over and over again. Confidence scores you goals. It just does in the playoffs. And when you got a team that just took off the champs, thinking, okay, now let's go take out Dallas, conference champs from a few years ago, but we could take them down too.
Yeah.
And then, all bets are off. They make it to a conference final. So,
Right.
We'll see. But I think Dallas definitely in every category would have the upper hand.
Yeah, I think so.
And man, if they get Pavelski back and it doesn't turn into one of these, he's really hurt, but he's back on the ice type of things.
Right. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't do it. If your team is winning, there's no point to do that. I can see if your team is on their last hope and put Bergeron back in with the herniated disc.
Right.
You're up 3-1. Just finish the series out and he rest up.
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, I think Dallas has a nice path ahead of them. Very nice path. Because if you look at the teams that are left, Dallas is basically the top seed now. I mean, obviously Vegas had more points than them in the regular season and whatnot, but I don't know, man. I like Dallas a lot the rest of the way.
I don't see Vegas sustaining. I don't see Edmonton sustaining, and Seattle definitely not. The only real team in the West I could really see coming out on top is Dallas.
Well, I think this Vegas. Yeah, I think this Vegas Edmonton series is going to be a bloodbath, really.
I think so because, here's the thing, right? Vegas is kind of like LA was, right? I'm not completely sold on Lauren Brissett at all. I'm really not.
Nah.
But no.
What LA kind of lacked, and a lot of it was Kevin Fiala being in and out of the lineup and all that, I understand. But Vegas can come at you in waves, and Jack Eichel's going to be playing with something to prove, right? Alex Pietrangelo wants to get back to the promised land. Mark Stone's going to be playing with something to prove.
And I'll tell you, guess who's playing the best on this Vegas team? Chandler Stevenson.
Yeah.
He is playing fantastic. He was on my fantasy team half the year. I dropped him trying to get him back. Yep. I got him back way too late. The season was already over. He was done. But he did a lot for me this year because every time they put him on another line, he clicked with that line. They'd move him into another line. He'd click with that line. Move him to that. All of a sudden, these other guys are scoring. And I had drafted Mark Stone. So when Eichel, was playing, all of a sudden they moved Chandler Stevenson to Eichel's line, and Stevenson's getting assists and goals every other game. And that's how it's looking in these playoffs, man. That kid's the right cog in that machine, man. You put him in, he just fits anywhere, gets things moving.
Right.
And
watching give him away for a song and a dance.
Oh man. Can't even, I mean, he's been playing great. Yeah. He's been playing great for this Vegas team. He generates so much offense for them, and he's the lowest paid guy on the team. So, I mean, I don't know, and I don't know on Edmonton who that guy is. That's the problem. You could say, okay, we'll match, Mark Stone and Eichel off with Draisaitl and McDavid, but who's the guy in Edmonton that's Chandler Stevenson?
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins?
Maybe.
Ed, what's your thoughts?
Honestly, outside of McDavid and Draisaitl, the rest of this Edmonton team has just been invisible. I mean, like you said earlier, Darnell Nurse is, besides Bouchard. You said Bouchard, but Darnell Nurse.
And Evander Kane's having a really good playoff so far, too.
He's not. Evander Kane's not bad. I don't think I don't think he can continue. He's never been. I think he's been to the finals once.
Yeah.
So how much gas does he have left in the tank, especially after the injury and him healing?
All those court dates.
Oh yeah, that's probably what's tiring him out. But
I'm not still bitter from him missing all those weeks he was on my team. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Vegas just matches up really well against a lot of these teams. Like you said earlier, Mazzani, it's like you can put Eichel, McDavid, or Stone and this person, or Pacioretty and this person, but they have a definitive X factor. Goaltender, it's going to be another who's the slightly better goaltender battle, but it's going to be the depth of Vegas that carries them forward.
Except there is no Pacioretty, by the way.
Not Pacioretty.
He's in Carolina, and he's not there either.
Yeah, Pietrangelo.
Oh, Pietrangelo. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Pietrangelo.
Don't forget they got Shea Theodore too.
Yes,
Yeah.
Shea Theodore.
Shea Theodore.
So they definitely
don't sleep on Marchessault.
Yeah, Marchessault.
Probably the only guy that could keep up with McDavid.
Riley Smith, like Vegas has some names. They have some good names to them.
I tell you what would be really interesting if it comes down to Dallas and Vegas in the final, because it'd be like the Pete DeBoer reunion.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting. Yep.
But yeah, I think you're right, Mazzotti, in regards that this Vegas Edmonton series is just going to be an offensive bloodbath.
It's going to be a bloodbath.
It's all
going to be a bloodbath.
You're not going to see a defensive clinic.
This is Rangers Devils West. I really feel that way.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bloodbath. It'll go 7 games, and whoever scores first in that game 7 is going to win it.
Right.
That's what's going to happen.
Exactly. Well, I'll tell you what, guys. We talked about the Carolina Devils series already, and I think we all think that the Devils going to wipe them out. We didn't get a chance to talk about, though, was the Toronto Maple Leafs versus those Florida Panthers. We went right to the Rangers series, right? So let's
Leafs fans.
You know what? I mean, they're it's like they've won the Stanley Cup.
They won the cup. They don't even play anymore. They won. It's over.
It's
they
over.
Won. So stupid. I can't believe these people are so happy for winning one round, and they're all like, "Did you hear him chanting? We want Florida. We want yeah. Oh, you'll get them. Trust me, you're getting Florida. Like you're gonna be ruined what you want.
Boston, that's for sure.
Yeah. You just got the team that beat the best team in ever. So good luck, Toronto. Yeah, good luck. It's good either way. Okay, it's good. First of all, it's over. Toronto fans can breathe a little easier. I get it. There's no more 1940. I get it. People telling me 1 cup in the last 80 years, like Scott likes to say, that doesn't sting as much as 1940 did. Okay, 1994.
Pearl Harbor, but that's
1994 made up for a lot. Okay, a lot. But Toronto. Okay, now this makes up for it. Even if they lose in the next round, what's the thing? Well, your team's won 1 series in the last 20 years. It's like, yeah, but we won 1. Like it's all that matters. You only have to do it once. And
Columbus and Toronto have the same amount of playoff success in the past 20 years. Just putting it out there in the world. Congratulations.
But
you
here's
just
the thing.
matched the Blue Jackets.
I read a nice article on this from The Athletic. If Toronto wins, if they go on, maybe they win the cup, okay? Or even if they go to the cup, it's really good for all our teams because it's good for the league. It gets up revenue. Toronto's got one of the largest fan bases in the league. Revenue goes up, cap goes up. We all enjoy that. So, it's not a bad thing. It's good for hockey, and it's going to be a fun series to watch because the second Florida gets a decent-sized lead in Game 1, I just want to hear the groans from Maple Leaf Gardens or whatever it's called now, and there's just nothing like hearing those groans. The groans in Toronto sound better than the groans in any other arena in the league, because there's just something about it when they groan. It's like there's so much history in that groan. You know what I mean? It's like hearing the 2002 Boston Red Sox fans groan. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot in there. You know what I mean? But that doesn't bother that anymore because Boston's won now, right? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what happened before 03. It's all erased. You know, that 100 years doesn't happen. Like, but and that'll be what it's like for Toronto. And that's what it's like for them right now. So I say you Toronto fans, enjoy it. Don't get cocky. Don't get cocky.
They already are.
Hockey gods don't like that.
I think the Florida team can pull an upset off, though.
So I think trust in Bobrovsky.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
You have to at this point.
But my thing is this Toronto team doesn't like feeling any sense of uncomfort or discomfort. And Matthew Tkachuk is going to make it his life's mission to make this Toronto team just completely uncomfortable.
You think Matthew Tkachuk's going to be a pest? Huh? I wouldn't be surprised if he found a way to sign Marchand just to play in the series.
Yeah.
And it sucks. Like it really does because I went down to Miami and I'm going down again, and I have to wear. I can't wear any Bruins gear when I'm down in Miami again this August.
No,
I can't.
No, I wouldn't.
It's just I'm gonna wear nothing but Chilean soccer jerseys, so no one knows what I'm wearing, and that's about it. Like I have to wear like Red Sox gear because at least we're better than the Marlins. It's
Tampa championship gear is still on sale on Fanatics if you want.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I
discount now.
Yeah, it's like $1.50.
Yeah.
It doesn't say Tampa Bay Lightning though. It just says Tampa Bay without the Y.
Yeah,
It's got Fanatics. The Tampa Bay Panthers.
It's going to be a good series. Toronto obviously can beat this Florida team, I would say, but this is a rivalry game.
Oh,
This is a rivalry series. These are division opponents that do not match up well with each other, or do match up well here, but do not like each other at all. And it's going to come down to goaltending. With Samsonov playing better than Bobrovsky, that's what I think it's going to come down to.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to Matthew Tkachuk.
And they both have their stinkers, so this should get real interesting. We could have a game 2 that's 7-2 in favor of Toronto, and a game 3 that's 7-2 in favor of Florida. With the same goalies and nets.
Right.
It really could be that way. It's going to be crazy.
I definitely think it comes to Florida's physicality. Can Tkachuk do it? Can Lomberg come back and do it? It really they can make life hell for the Maple Leafs. Even if the Maple Leafs come out on top, they're gonna be a completely different team the next round.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a great series. I just much better than people think, but I don't know. I think this series can be
Henrik Lundqvist.
Which Bobrovsky shows up.
Henrik Lundqvist said something interesting on the TNT commentary about going into the second round. He's like, once you're in the second round, that's when the playoffs become fun. You're through the stress of you got out of the first round. There's only 8 teams left, and this is when you guys go like, all right, let's put our nose down and really play some grinded out fun hockey. And that's perfect for all these matchups because Toronto, Florida, Vegas, Edmonton, those are going to be the battles. I don't know what we're going to get out of Seattle, Dallas yet. And like I said, New Jersey should stomp Carolina. I just don't know how they don't.
Right.
I really don't. And that makes me feel better about the Rangers. Like Ed said,
there you go.
Florida wins the cup, they're justified.
Yep,
You're justified. If the Devils win the cup, I'm justified. Oh, we got beat by the champs. It's the same way I felt when Pittsburgh won the cup. I was like, that's fine, because now it justified them beating the Rangers that year. It was like, all right, that we lost to the best team. I don't mind losing to the best team. What I don't want to lose to is a team that gets swept in the next round. That's embarrassing. Yeah. That's embarrassing.
Exactly. All right. Well, guys, that was fun. And that was really fun, actually. And I just can't wait to watch more hockey. But you know what? All good things must come to an end. So we're going to end this episode with, what do you think? The Zamboni Time Machine. You guys want to get on that old Zamboni time machine and go back in time? Let's do it. The Zamboni name, by the way, is used with permission. This week, the Zamboni time machine takes us back to 1874 and the start of Madison Square Garden. Located in
childhood.
We're way back. Yeah, well, it was a great time. Okay. Located at the intersection of Madison Avenue and 26th Street, it was an outdoor arena built by P.T. Barnum, and it was originally called Barnum's Monster Classical and Geological Hippodrome. Say that 5 times fast. It became known as Madison Square Garden in May of 1879 after the owner of the New York Central Railroad, William Vanderbilt, bought it. This building was taken down in 1889 and replaced by an imposing indoor complex that included an 8,000-seat arena, a 1,500-seat concert hall, a 1,200-seat theater, the largest indoor swimming pool in the world at the time, and a beautiful rooftop garden. It was in this garden that the architect of the building, Stanford White, would meet his end. White had been having an affair with the wife of Harry Thaw, and on June 25th, 1906, Thaw took his revenge by shooting White dead in the rooftop garden. This complex would hold thousands of events, but never hockey. A brand new Madison Square Garden was built in 1925 and was located at 49th Street and 8th Avenue. The 18,000-seat arena was considered to be the ultimate indoor sports and entertainment complex in the world for its time. Although the New York Rangers are synonymous with the name Madison Square Garden, it was actually the New York Americans who would be the first NHL team to play here as the home team, as they had just moved to New York from Hamilton, Ontario in 1925. Tex Rickard, the promoter who had built his garden, would bring the New York Rangers into the NHL in 1926 and gave his team much better scheduling options than the Americans, who would continue to play at the Garden until they folded in 1942. This MSG was a busy place, as any day of the week, a sporting or entertainment event was being held. All things must come to an end, and in this case of MSG, it was in 1968 when this building was closed down. It was replaced by the current Madison Square Garden, located at the top of Penn Station at 33rd Street between 7th and 8th Avenues. The Rangers played their first game there on February 18, 1968, defeating the Philadelphia Flyers by a score of 3-1. Since then, this Madison Square Garden has become a part of American sports and entertainment culture, as it has held thousands of concerts and events, along with being the site of Ali Frazier 1, the first WrestleMania, and the great one, Wayne Gretzky's last game, to name just a few of the memorable sporting events that have taken place here. The world's most famous arena, as it is now known, is the oldest operating arena in the NHL. And that, my friends, concludes this week's trip on the Zamboni Time Machine.
And they want to tear it down again and build a new one.
Probably the tune of about $5 billion, but you know
they do. They're in this. Do you know about this? They're in a predicament right now.
Yeah, over on the west side, right?
Yeah, I think over by the Javits Center or something like that. They want to put it, and it would be a huge mistake. I think. Yeah. You know, it's so perfectly located. They just remodeled the whole thing. They put in bridges. You know, it's something else now. I mean, I haven't been there since the bridges got put in, but I hear it's really, really great. And
Penn Station's dump. That's awesome.
Well, I mean, every subway and every train station in New York City, even Grand Central is.
I love Grand Central. Grand Central's nice.
The station's nice. Then you all of a sudden you walk up to where the trains are, and you're like, "Oh, there's that urine smell again."
Oh yeah, because it's coming from like a couple blocks down.
Couple blocks.
Well, guys, you know what? We'll have to do a show from there someday. How's that?
I'm up for it. My best friend lives in the Bronx.
There we go.
I'll take an Amtrak down and just complain.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what I do best. You get harassed. Like, what are you looking at? Like, I'm just washing my hands. I'm going to fight you. Why? I'm just washing my hands. You're looking at me. No, I'm washing my hands. That's what happened the last time I was at Penn Station. So,
well, it is what it is, I guess.
Don't look at people.
Yeah. Well, guys, like I said, this has been a blast. We have got plenty more playoff hockey to keep our eyes on, which we are going to continue to watch. And, of course, we're going to talk about this all over again next week.
Yeah, so, I don't stop watching hockey because my team got booted. Right. That's not what a hockey fan is. I'm sorry. Exactly. And you want to prove, like I said, that your team lost to the better team. So watch that team. I'm going to watch the Devils-Carolina games, and I'm going to be rooting for the Devils. Yeah. Sorry, that's what I'm going to be doing. I know. Do I like the Devils? Not really, no. But other than that, we have their farm team here, and I'll be watching their games too, because they're in the next round. They're fighting for their life too. So, good. A lot of good hockey to watch this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, fellas. Well, this is going to be sign off for this week. So for Ed Stefanik, for Chris Mazzotti, I'm Scott Kimball. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week on Marty's Illegal Stick.